Good morning and welcome to our Get Licensed to Build workshop. It's a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the parts of the license application and to give you practical tips to help you complete it correctly. Also to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California contractor's license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the government agency responsible for regulating the California construction industry. My name is Anna Rodriguez. I'm an enforcement supervisor. Joining us today is Fode Garagoslo, licensing supervisor. Good morning, Fode.
Good morning, Anna. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, and 1 representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note, CSLB test centers are open. Unvaccinated applicants will have to wear masks on their test day. Face coverings are not required for fully vaccinated individuals inside the CSLB buildings and test centers. If you are watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to ask questions, you'll need to join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. This is also where you can download the presentation to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on the slides throughout this workshop. We are going to present a lot of information today, so don't worry if you don't catch it all. We will archive the video of this workshop and put it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again if needed. To ask a question on WebEx, you want to use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature, on the bottom right of your screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during the workshops on how you can document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send all of those questions until after you watch that part of the workshop. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation, which usually lasts about 45 minutes to an hour.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2021 edition of the CSLB application, California Contractors License Law, and reference book. You can download it for free on CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
So here's a list of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to take you through the process for applying for your California contractor license. First, we'll talk about who needs a license, then why get a contractor's license, the minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, and what credits you might qualify for, the types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications, including our new B2 residential remodeling classification. We will also spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to help fill out your applications, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications, fingerprint requirements for criminal background check, and we will also help you get ready for the exam or exams that you're going to need to pass in order to get your license. Finally, the other things that you're going to need to have in place before your license is issued as well, things such as a bond and insurance.
First, we will take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, the state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor license. So what's the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I will read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underline. A contractor is a person, a consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, proposes to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should I get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows that you've taken the necessary steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do that work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught faced a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere from $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get a license? First, it is important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid social security number or valid individual taxpayer identification number, or called ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education or technical training and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions on this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications that we receive and the process every month, we don't have the staff time that it would take to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you have applied for your license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work that you're going to be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning that you're going to need at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB with written documentation. That means a copy of your apprenticeship completion certificate or the official transcripts from your technical school or your college. What you want to do is have your transcripts mailed directly to you. Do not open the envelope. You want to leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB application packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor's license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you will need to get your license first. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We are not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in Construction Management. That degree will give you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master's or bachelor degree in business or law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate in science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in a major beside construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for C20 HVAC and C43 sheet metal classification only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you have taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might be able to count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program, where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of our CSLB test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is in a specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we can discuss later. Those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business examination. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to say that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams, but it has to be in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link here at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B, General Building Contractor license, and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is the sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licenses. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor license can include multiple classifications, although you have to select one when you first file your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There's a bonus link here to our classification list at the bottom of the screen. First, we have our Class A General Engineering Contractors. These are the contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones who build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is our Class B General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry, unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for the construction work that requires a special skill or whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include the C10 Electrical Contractors, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C36 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Solar Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under our C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB is excited to announce our first new licensing classification in a decade. It's called the B2 Residential Remodeling Classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have a structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here is what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. They cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modifications to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licenses also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licenses, B2 applicant licenses must comply with CSLB experience examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. CSLB is accepting applications for the B2 license now. We started last month, June 1st. Exam dates will begin next month in August. If you have more questions about the B2 license, emailing the license division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you're ready to apply for a license, here are 2 forms that you're going to need. On the left is our license application. On the right is a certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is a bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation later. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you are using an RME or responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they are unwilling or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options: application for original contractor license or application for original contractor license examination waiver, 7065. We have got links to both at the bottom of the page.
So the next step will be to determine your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Some things that you're going to have to keep in mind are your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are actually receiving. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have the company name of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporations and LLC names must match exactly the name that you have already registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what's called the DBA or doing business as. The main thing to remember when you're using a DBA is that it cannot be misleading and that you must use the name in all advertising and on your contracts as well. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver, and you can feel free to use as many pages as needed. Be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago. There's another bonus link here at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. You want to make sure that you proofread your application for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your examination. If so, please complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next, Let's take a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county, on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here. You can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you're out of a state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those can take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. So you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you do have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor, or if your conviction involves fraud or violent crime. There are other factors that CSLB considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and also any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions which occurred within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would go back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we look back for 3 years from the application date, so to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of all the applications we get based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprint information at the bottom of the page.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which he or she is applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of your work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms that you need in order to provide the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. And you're going to want to use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure that the person that's certifying your work describes the actual work that you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now share some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Remember, we don't want you to copy and paste this information directly into your application. They're just examples that you can use.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you are trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we will keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. The work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example here is for our Class B general building contractors. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be very specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work and would be something like this. Bob performed rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something like this: residential general building trades. For a four-person experience, the description must include some hand-on work, but also supervisory work. So here's an example of the best type of description for a four-person. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Something unacceptable would be something like this, something generic: residential general building trades. So we want, as you can see, we want you to be more descriptive. For a supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. An example here is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Now let's look at the unacceptable. It would be something like this: residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were either out of state, military, done on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify at a journey person, four-person, or supervising employee level. Be specific about your duties and the employment circumstances. Our next example here is going to be for the C27 landscaping contractor. First, for the experience at a journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier can use would be something like this: Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Something unacceptable would be something generic, something like this: gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Now let's look at the best description for a C27 landscaping contractor for a four-person. It would be something like this: Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscaping construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something generic, something like this: gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at that supervisor level. The best description would be something like this: as a construction lead on multiple projects, Jane supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervisor level would be something like this: gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for the B contractors is required. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as for the military, work done for the military or on federal lands or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe what your duties were and what your employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all of the information provided on at least 3% of the applications that we receive. Our next three slides are going to show you what we consider acceptable documentation that you can use to support your work experience. But you're only going to need this in the event that your application is selected and you're asked to provide this additional documentation. This documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You're only going to provide this to CSLB if CSLB staff requests this information from you. On the lower right of the screen, you'll see that there's a link here to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at this chart, you can see that the first column is for documents that you can use if you were self-employed, or I'm sorry, if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is the one that you can use to document if you were self-employed. The third column is for documentation that you will need if you are applying for a Class B general building contractor license and you want to use your own builder experience to meet some of the requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on that link there and print this publication and view it on our website. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you're asked to provide it in the future. Remember, what you're trying to do is demonstrate that you have at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of the experience or to verify any of the information that you provided.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got 2 pieces of advice for you. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you will need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check it to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You will pay the $200 initial licensing fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand deliver to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
Okay, now that we've gone through the information that you're going to need to include, we're going to take a closer look at the application so you can see where you're going to be including this information. This is section 1 of our application. Here is where you're going to list your business name. Remember that when you're selecting a business name, we mentioned that you want to make sure that you have selected one that is compatible with both the classification and the entity that you are applying for, and you don't want it to be misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that your name that you're providing in this section here matches exactly what you have registered with the Secretary of State. In line number 2, you're going to indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list here on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. Next is section 2. Here you will select your business entity. If you're applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number here that is given to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure you pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying for. Next is section 3. Here you will list the qualifier's information. Remember that the qualifier is the person that meets the experience requirements. That person is also going to be responsible for the direct supervision and control of your construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the examination. On line number 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you're going to be the only person on the license, then you're going to put 100% in this box here. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position was held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements, so you're going to need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on what entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you're going to sign and date your application. Section 4 of the application is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that's going to be listed on your license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you're going to need to tell us who's going to be the responsible managing officer or employee, the president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of our application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, feel free to make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you want to make sure that all the personnel that you have included with the Secretary of State is listed here, because we do compare our records, so you want to make sure if they're listed there, they're going to be listed in this section here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in Section 4. Section 5 is just a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here, but you want to make sure you do go through them. Section number 6 is where you can be granted credit towards the 4-year of experience requirement based on your education. Here, question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit the official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will also need to provide the certificate of completion. You want to get those sealed transcripts mailed to you. Then include that sealed transcript with your application packet. Do not have the program send it directly to CSLB, only because we receive so many applications and you don't want to take the chance that we're not able to match it up to your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. The credit is not given on a year-to-year basis, which means just because you have a 2-year college degree doesn't necessarily mean that you will be granted 2 years of credit towards your experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. A 10-year time limit does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. But if you have a degree that is in another language other than English, you're going to have that degree translated and evaluated. Now we're going to talk about the Certificate of Work Experience. Part 1 of the Certification of Work Experience will be filled out by you. Here, you will list the information about your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained your experience, that's not a problem. Just please make sure that you check this box here in line for 2. If you're applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience that you obtained while working on your own property, make sure you mark the box in line number 4. Part number 2 of the Certification of Work Experience will be filled out by the certifier, the person that you select to certify your work experience. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained this experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind that if you were working part-time, you're only going to receive 50% of credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet that 4-year experience requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised and considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in our description of classification booklet available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers to be critical duties for every classification that we offer. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words, and you want to make sure that they're as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certification is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you. As you can see there in box number 7, there's different boxes they can select. They can be an employer, a journeyman, another contractor, a fellow employee, a union representative, a foreman or supervisor, or a business associate. So they just need to select one of the boxes, and then they can list their contact information. Lastly, they need to sign and date that certification as well. The next form that we're going to discuss is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience Form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for a B General Construction License and you want to receive experience for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is going to be required for each project that you've done on your property. This experience must be verifiable through building permits or final inspections or other documentation. You have to be able to prove the work experience. You will need to list the building permit number here on line number 6, and then on line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project itself. Question number 11 asks if another general construction contractor worked on the project and what trades did they perform. Remember, you want to provide information that is accurate and complete.
With all the information Anna just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We will post a video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch it in case there is anything you missed. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are 2 resources. First is the secure check. You will need your application fee number and contractor PIN. PIN number to get an update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the dates we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork, it's likely we are busy working on your applications. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands of documents every day, and we process them in the order they're received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start processing your application again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID-19. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test centers.
If you're an applicant whose first language is in English and you don't feel confident taking your exam in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator is somebody that you provide, and what they do is simply read you the exam questions. Question number 16 on the application asks you if you would like to use a translator to complete the examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance before your examination. So you cannot just show up to the day of your examination to the test center with somebody to translate your examination for you. They have to go through a screening process. When you get an exam date, make sure that you don't miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you're going to have to pay a non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each of our study guides, you're going to find information like a list of topics that are covered by the exam. They also include sample questions. It tells you how each section of the exam is weighted, and also recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination, a list of books and websites that you can start studying on now. These study guides are available online on our website. There's also a bonus link to them on the bottom of this screen here.
Here is a quick look at 2 of those study exams. The first is the law and business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B, General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of both of these slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open, and we do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on test day. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. Unvaccinated applicants must wear a face mask and other face coverings. Fully vaccinated individuals are not required to wear a face mask. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video labeled What to Expect on Test Day that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is here at the bottom of the page.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you will see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You will also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about the question. You will get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You'll get your results at the end of exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18 months period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
So after you pass your exam, then what happens? First, you're going to need to pay the $200 initial licensing fee, and that's good for 2 years. Then you're going to need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond, and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you'll have. You'll also need to get your required insurance policy. If you have employees, you're going to have to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. You can see our website for more information. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations when you're going to solicit business or talk to potential customers or sign a contract. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you are going to have salesperson working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will be expired on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, July 2nd, 2021, will expire July 31st, 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need, so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
So here are a couple of other important deadlines that you want to keep in mind. First, you're going to want to notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice is going to be sent to the address of record, whatever we have on file. So you want to make sure that if you're not at that address anymore, that you let us know so that you do receive it. The Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to the personnel on your license, but especially if it involves the qualifier of your license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called Home Improvement Salesperson, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. A home improvement salesperson can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate a home improvement salesperson with their license.
So there are a couple of exceptions to note. First, for those who are only going to be scheduling appointments for a contractor or registered HIS. Bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks you can call out for repairs, including things like your air conditioning, your heating, your plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company and somebody comes out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair and then they want to sell you a new HVAC system, then they have to be a registered salesperson. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation, possibly even a criminal misdemeanor charge. We've got a bonus link here at the bottom of this page here if you want to look at the actual code section of law.